Hello everyone, welcome back to our Maya 2020 tutorial series. This was our character rig we've been working on for our construction guy. So what we're going to work on today is creating the spine that our legs will connect to, and we're also going to work on creating the set-driven key that's going to control the feet, and we'll see if we have some time we'll work on the controls for the spine as well. So let's go ahead and start out by just drawing in the spine, and then we'll get into the set-driven key, since the set-driven key is going to require us to go into a couple different editors. So to start out with, let's go ahead and do this side-by-side view. So we go panels, orthographic and side view. And what we want to do is we want to create a set of joints that will make up the root and hips and the spine all the way up to the head. So we're going to create use our joint key, and that's the same thing as create joints, same thing. Okay, so I'm going to start out by putting one down here in the crotch area. Right in here is probably good, somewhere centered right underneath it. That's good. Next is going to be up at the hips, so probably somewhere right in there is good, just kind of like in between the front of the stomach and the back. That's fine. You want it to be a little bit above where the joints of the legs are at. That's good. Now we're going to do 4 joints going up to where the neck starts. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then we're going to create one more that will be the head. Now eventually we're going to do a face rig as well, but we're going to save that for the end, and we're going to have that parented in separately. So we're not going to mess with the face rig at the moment. That will be a completely different lesson, probably more than one, to complete that. So this is all just kind of going to be a placeholder for this upper part here. So I'll press return to complete this, and that should be just fine. Let's make sure we go through and name everything properly. So we're going to open up our hierarchy here. Okay, so starting from the bottom here, this is called bn underscore root. Okay, this is one we're not going to really screw. This will be like basically what all of our joints run into. It'll be the top of our hierarchy. The next one will be bn hips. Then we'll go bn spine 1. bn spine 2. bn spine 3. This one will be bn neck. This one will be bn head. Okay, I think that this joint here might be a little bit high up. I'm going to move this one down just a little bit. Right there, that's probably better. Okay, this one probably can be somewhere right around there. Just to make sure this isn't up, this joint here isn't up inside the head. Okay, so that's good. Next, I want to parent these guys into this joint, not this one. This one's the root, so we're not going to be having anything parented down here. So select the child, shift select this joint here. I'll press P for parent. Same thing on this side. I'm going to select this joint, shift select this joint, and press P for parent. Okay, so what did that do? I'm not going to grab this. You don't want to grab any of these joints to move them, but just as a demonstration that on how this is going to work eventually is if I take this one joint here, you can then see that we're getting some action going on here. Now I'm going to hit Control Z because I don't have any constraints that putting this back in the starting position, which means getting it back to where it's at right now by zeroing out the channel box layer editor won't help me. So don't mess with this the way I just did and go click on somewhere else that will cause your rig to be out of place. Okay. So next, what we're going to do before we get into creating the rig that's going to control this is I do want to jump back down into our feet and get these feet taken care of before we go too much further. So to begin with, what I need to do is I need there to be an attribute that's going to control our feet. So if you recall, we have good control here, but how to get it to where our foot actually goes up on the balls of its feet or rocks back on its heel, it's a little bit more difficult to deal with. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an attribute that we can control that will do both those functions for us. So we're going to select this controller, and we're going to go to Edit, and we're going to Add Attribute. Oh, I'm sorry, it went to Attribute Editor. I meant to go to Add Attribute. There we go. It's the same, like, what happened? That was not where it was supposed to go. All right, so what's going to want to know now is what is this new attribute called? So the name is going to be called foot roll. Okay, and float is fine. We want that because that will give us a decimal value for it to be able to animate between. Minimum, we want this to be able to have some negative values. So we're going to say minimum is going to be -10. Maximum, we're going to set that at 10. And default is 0. So where it's at currently right now is its default state, and we'll say OK. So what we have here is our new foot roll attribute that's connected to this controller, but right now it's not connected to anything. So if I was to come over here and change values, nothing really happens quite yet because there's nothing that it's driving yet. While we're at it, I'm going to do the other side so we can just do these things together at the same time. So I'll select this controller over here. I'm going to go to Edit, Add Attribute, and we'll call this one foot roll as well. And this one will also be a minimum of -10 and a maximum of 10. And we'll say OK. All right, so now we have 2 foot roll attributes in place. And now we can go ahead and start with our set-driven key. So to get to our set-driven key, we're going to need to go to a different drop-down. This rigging drop-down we've been working isn't going to have the tools we need. So we're going to go to Animation, Key, and down to where it says set-driven key and set. And actually, if you look over here on the shelf, this little icon is also right here. So this will probably take us over to set-driven key as well. So we wouldn't have to necessarily navigate to a new shelf. But here we are, so let's go ahead and go with it. So we go to Set, and it should open up. There we go. For some reason it didn't pop right open, but there we are. Okay, so now what is the driver here? This or this? Either or is fine, but let's go ahead and say that this controller here is our driver. It means that its attribute is going to drive something. So I'm going to say this is load driver, so it pops up over here. And which of our driver attributes is going to drive the driven? And it's going to be that foot roll that we had, right? Okay, so that's good. We'll just select this, so now it knows that from this control through this attribute, we're going to control some driven objects. Now we're not going to control the other controller. That's not what's happening here. We need to load the driven objects. So we're going to select our joints here. Now we can go to select this reverse foot lock joint. This is what's driving this whole foot chain up here, right? So that's the reason why we create this reverse foot lock, is to handle this. And I want to go to select hierarchy. That'll make it to where all the joints in here are selected. Now you can go through and select all the joints individually, and that will do the same thing. This just saves you a step by going to select hierarchy. You select the parent joint, which is this one right here, and then it selects all the child joints as well. So now I can go ahead and hit load driven. There we are. So we have our reverse foot lock heel, toe, foot, and ankle. Okay, so if I select these guys here, you'll see that now all their attributes are popping up over here. That's good. What I'm interested in is a rotate value of these guys. So if we look over here, before I get into driving any of these values, I want to see which axis we're rotating in. So if I go over here and I just rotate the heel a little bit, I can see over here in the channel box that I have values changing in the rotate Z, which means that I don't need to key all the rotate attributes. Because all I really need to do is key the rotate Z, right? So if I click on rotate Z, you can see all 4 of these are currently highlighted, and the rotate Z. That means that if I look at from the top, the driver is our left foot control. The foot attribute, or the foot roll, inside of our controller is what's driving the driven objects. The driven objects are the reverse foot lock, and they're all left. This is left, and then it's on the rotate Z attribute that is going to be the one that's being driven. So right now, currently, the foot roll is at 0. So if I hit key, it will add a driven value. You can see out here on the rotate Z, it now has this little blue mark next to the number, and that tells you that it's being driven by an attribute. Okay, so then if I come over here back to the controller, you can see that this is still at 0. That's perfect. But now we want to actually crank this thing backwards. So we're going to say, at -10, what does this thing look like? Okay, so then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab the heel, just the heel here. I'm just going to rock it back so it's about right there. It's about as far as the foot can possibly go back, because anything further than this, your toe here would never touch the shin without breaking. So this is about as far as you'd be able to rock back on your heel. This might even be a little bit too far. So we're going to say that this is -10, and it still has the same attributes all set up, so we can go ahead and hit key. Let's go ahead and go back to our control foot, and if I hover over the top here, you can see that's got those 2 arrows facing both ways. That means if I left mouse button drag right now, it'll just change this value back to 0, and then we can see how our driven key is working. So that looks pretty good. That's working the way we want it to. Now we're going to want to go the other way. So we're going to want to go up to +10. So what does this look like when it's all the way up on the ball of the foot? So to do that, I'm going to want to crank this joint up, leaving the heel alone. So somewhere up. Let's look at our foot. Let's just say an even 45. That way it'll gives an even whole value for us to make the other one in the same exact position. All right, so now I can go ahead and key this as well. So let's go ahead and check out and see how this is working. So we got it, heel dip back, toe up. Now there's one little problem that we have here. From here, it automatically goes up onto the ball of the toe, which you wouldn't just, if you're walking, you wouldn't just go right up on the ball of the toe. There's the whole foot joint right here, that your heel would come up first, then up onto your toes, and then like up onto the tips. The tips would be the last thing it would come to. So we want there to be a little bit of a pause. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, well, on the foot roll at, let's say at 5, I'm going to cause this to go back down to 0. And instead, I'm going to have this one over here come up. And then I'll go ahead and key this, which will then make it to where it'll pause for a moment. It won't until after frame 5 go up onto the toe, but both these will have the same final destination. So if I now go back to my foot roll here and scrub all the way back, so we go back to 0. Once it goes up, you can see there's this little bit of a pause that causes it to where the ankle comes up, and then the foot, and then onto the toe. So there's that pause. That's what you want. Okay, so that's good. All right, so now we have to rinse and repeat onto the other side. So let's go ahead and jump into that. All right, so we're going to load the driven object. So we're going to go to select hierarchy, load driven, and this one here is going to be our driver, right? So load driver, there it is, and reverse foot lock is our driving object, and rotate on the right. Okay, and we're going to be doing the rotate Z still, right? Okay. And I believe the foot roll is still in 0, so I can go ahead and key this. Okay, so then we're going to do the minus. So we're going to go -10. And then we're going to want to roll this joint back. So something about right there. I'm going to do the other side as well just to make sure that I have the right rotation value. Okay, let's check the heel's rotation here. I'll just copy this value. So Control C, click on this joint, Control V, and then I can just hit key. All right, let's go ahead ahead and test that out. That's good. All right, let's go up to 10 now. Let's make this one go to 10 as well. Make sure that we're all synced up. Okay, so I believe this was 45. Let's just double check that. 45, okay. So let's go ahead and select that joint and go to 45 as well. Okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and key this. All right, so now we have to do that halfway point one, okay? So we're gonna go to, let's go to 5. And this one, remember, we're going to zero this out. So we're gonna go 0. Instead, let's go ahead and find out where this one was at 5. 31, we'll just copy that value. Come over here, paste the value, and we'll just hit S. I'm sorry, not S, undo that, key. Let's go ahead and test this out now. There we go. So now we have a rock back and forth, our set driven key. So that's good. All right, so running a little bit long on this. I don't want to really get into the rigging the upper body. We're at 16 minutes already. It's going to take a little bit to get the upper rig done. So I think that we're going to save that for the next lesson. So thanks for watching, guys. And I'll see you in the next lesson, and we'll do the spine rig. So let's go ahead and save before we sign off. Okay. And we'll see you guys in the next lesson. Thanks for watching.